So last time we were talking, we discussed your milk route.
Okay, as I mentioned before, I started my business in the milk business as a independent milk distributor. And this was encouraged by a dear friend of mine, Charlie DeLeon, he used to be a milker in Gardena at Verberg Dairy. And after they had to milk cows twice a day, so he used to get up early in the morning and milk the cows. And then he started his own milk route. He became an independent distributor, milk distributor. And I used to help him out. I used to help him out deliver what he had. And in turn, he loaned me his truck so that I could get started as well. And I've done very well. And our competitors were big companies. And I'm referring to a company in those days was Golden State Creamery, Mayfair Creamery, Carnation Creamery. All these were major companies, and these are the people that we had to compete with. So I found it very easily. At the beginning, I tell you what, when I was soliciting, at the beginning I found it was difficult, trying to knock on a door and knowing that I'm going to sell milk and they already are taking milk from another company. And I knock on the door and I would say to myself, oh, I hope they don't answer, I hope they don't answer. And then after a while I says, hey, I got to change that attitude, because after all, I got to build a business. I have a couple of kids that need to eat, and a wife that wants to cook the food for me, and etc. And so I changed my approach, and I said, hey, no, I gotta sell them. I have to sell them. So finally, I said, well, lady, well, after I knocked on the door, they answered me. I said, well, who do you taking milk from? Well, I'm taking milk from so-and-so, Golden State, Mayfair Creamery, whatever it was. Oh, I said, ma'am, I have milk that comes directly from the dairy. It's fresh, directly from the dairies, that morning milking. And it has more nourishment when it's fresher. I came up with all these little crazy little perks, and it worked. And before you know it, I'm getting customers away from all these major companies. And I built my route up, and then I had an opportunity to sell that. Oh, I built 2 routes because we deliver milk every other day. So I deliver milk 7 days a week or 6 days a week, every other day. And so finally I had an opportunity to sell my route. And I was very successful in the sale of this route. We sold it. As a matter of fact, Charlie DeLeon, my friend, and myself, we sold our...
Go ahead and continue.
Yeah. And then we sold our routes, and we done pretty good. I recall when he sold his route, he bought himself a house. We earned enough to be able to buy a down payment on the house and buy a new car at the same time. And so we did do that. We each bought a car and a house. So we thought that was very good and successful. And so after we sold that, then we decided to go out again and do the same thing. And we'd both done the same thing. We built our milk routes, and then we sold it. And every time, we done very well. See, milk in the dairy industry, when they deal with milk to buy or sell, that it's not the milk itself, it's the butterfat content that you sell. Now, a quart of milk contains 3.5% buttermilk, 3.5% butterfat. That's what it's called. So when you sell a quart of milk of 3.5, it has certain value, and it was sold in quarts. How many quarts, or units they call them, how many units we had. So anyhow, we've done very well. I done very well in selling, because I guess I have to attribute that to my dad. My father taught me how to sell, how to knock on doors, and how to sell. I recall when I used to go out with him, and I wanted some cake, or I wanted something to eat when I used to go out with him, and all I do is get a head of cabbage or some carrots or whatever it was, and knock on a few doors while he was selling to his regular customers, and I would get enough money to get myself some cupcakes or little cakes, and milk, and whatever I wanted. My specialty was tomato juice. I used to love tomato juice, so I used to buy tomato juice. A certain place I used to buy it in San Pedro. And but the training that I got from my father without realizing it, my dad being a produce salesman, he was aggressive, and he, without telling me, I just follow his footsteps and know how he would sell, and in those days, he used to sell to, because he had customers in San Pedro, and in San Pedro, majority of the customers were either Mexicans, Italians, or Slavonians. Well, my dad knew English, and he knew Spanish, so he learned Italian and Slavonian because he had so many customers. So he learned actually 4 languages. So, and people, the customers liked him, and people liked you to try. When you try to speak their language, they embrace you. They like that you're trying. And a good experience I had on that was with the Japanese, because I had a lot of friends that were Japanese. I used to go to the Gardena Dojo, and a dojo was a place where you learn how to judo and jiu-jitsu, because I was taking a training there. And so they embrace you. They like that you embrace their Japanese culture, and they're nicer to you. They're happy. They're nice people. So consequently, don't matter what language you're learning, if you have these people like my dad learning Italian and Slavonian, they just liked him. So they used to buy from him. He had a good route. He raised 5 of us by selling produce. He done very good. It was a lot of hard work, getting up early in the morning, 4 or 5 in the morning, and going to the produce market and buy his products to sell that day. So it was a long day. I recall he used to come home maybe 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I recall that he would get himself a bottle of wine, a bottle of beer, a small can of beer, and he would, as soon as he gets home, he would take this beer and lay down on the floor. On the floor was firm, and he slept maybe 15, 20 minutes, and he got up well rested, and that was his cycle. That's the way he used to handle things. Well, from this procedure, I've learned how to do it and what to do and how to sell and when to sell. And consequently, learning this, and with the help of my friend Charlie De Leon, lending me his truck after he delivered his milk, I would borrow his truck and share the expenses on his truck, and I built up my route. Then I got my own truck, and from there I built and sold my business. Then I started another route again. I knew it was the value of it, so I went out and done the same thing again. Well, on the first routes that I had, we bought. I think we bought the house. We gave down payment down payment house, because when I built my other set of routes, I paid off my house, and okay, turn it off. Okay. I was going to say, going back to the house, on Denker Street. We paid 8,500 for it. 8,500. That wasn't very much. We gave $3,000 down when we first sold the first route, and it was a 3-bedroom home. It was only 5 years old, and it was. And I gave $3,000 down, and I recall that our neighbor across the street, she said, "Well, I got $3,000. You could have gotten something in Palos Verdes for $3,000 down." But then I thought to myself, "Well, heck, man, don't forget I have big payments to make and big taxes to pay and all that." No, I think my judgment was good. I bought what I thought I could handle for maybe for the first 10, 20 years of my life. So as it turned out, that was a good judgment. I paid $3,000 when I first got that house, and after that, I built some more routes, and I sold it, and then I paid it off. And I think I was about 35 years old at the time that I paid off my house. And not only that, but we also had a good car. We bought a good car out of it. And I recall Mayfair Creamery, they just couldn't understand how I could build routes and take their business away from them. They didn't understand that they had the state investigate me, because milk was controlled by the state. The amount of butterfat or anything to do with the milk, that I don't give nothing free in turn of having their business. So they investigated me there, and I showed them my books. They checked everything out. I was okay. I didn't give nothing. I never did. But I was just had the personality to get the people to buy milk from me. And but I recall, clearly, when I was first starting, how I would knock on the door and I would say, "Gee, I hope they don't answer. I hope they don't answer." I was just so frightened by having the door open in front of me, bro. Which eventually I says, no, I got to straighten this out. I got to just be more firm, have more control of myself, and wait for them to open that door, and I was ready for them. Yeah.
So how many years do you work in the milk industry as a deliveryman?
5 years, let's see. The first time was about 3 years, I remember correctly. And then the second time, possibly could have been another 3 years. I don't think it was more than that. And
why did you decide to finally quit being a deliveryman?
quit delivering? Let's see. I believe that after that, did I go and work? I think I went to work as a maintenance man at Kaiser Hospital. Oh, what was it? Okay, when I left the aircraft industry.
The milk industry. How come you decided to quit the whole career of being a milkman?
Well, yeah.
To a new career.
Well, when I left the milk industry, it was not an easy. It was hard. Mm-hmm. I had to get up early in the morning and make my delivery, and then go out and collect money, and then solicit to build my business. And once I sold the business, I had to repeat the whole thing again, and it's just a lot of work. But right after or during the war, I went to the Merchant Marines. I started as a wiper, and then worked as a fireman, as an oiler, water tender, and deck engineer. I work in those positions. And let's see. So after I left, so with that background that I had in the Merchant Marines, I was hired over this one person that was competing against me.
What company was this?
This is at Disneyland. Mm-hmm. And they send from the union. I heard that they were hiring from the union, so I went to union, and they sent me over, and with this other man. And But I had that experience. I had boiler experience and all that, and they wanted somebody that knew about locomotives, and being that it's a steam operated locomotive, I was more favorable because my background in the Merchant Marines and working in the engine room. So I recall the day that they asked us to build a press, both of us. So we both built a press, and we were both welders. We had to have that background as welders. Well, this guy was a welder, and he's a pretty good welder, and I guess I was a pretty good welder too. So finally, they had to decide which one of us two was going to stay. So I was picked up. I was picked, I guess, probably because I've had the background of being in the Merchant Marines and aboard ship in the engineering department. Well, this man did not have that experience. And when they picked me in, this guy wanted to cry. You know, he just felt so bad. I felt sorry for the poor guy. Yeah, they picked me, but then again, I had the expertise. And the schooling, I had welding school. I had attended a welding school, and they helped me out to improve myself and be competitive in welding. And when you're an engineer, like at Disneyland or any place that I worked at, to be able to weld and to do things like that was in your favor. See, this is just another plus for you. So the more schooling you have, the better you was in getting the position.
So what was your job at Disneyland when you got hired?
I was in Disneyland. Basically, I was preparing the locomotives and cleaning them on the outside. You know, kind of polish them and build up steam in the engines and get them ready to be taken out on the railroad that goes around the park. And once I've done that, then I used to go aboard the locomotives and relieve the engineers for the coffee breaks and for the lunches. So it kept me pretty busy. Then in between, I would go back to the roundhouse. This is what they call the roundhouse, where they prepare the locomotives for the day. And I used to operate a lathe, a machine shop. But they asked me, well, do you know anything about lathes or shapers and things like that? I said, oh, yes, I've taken that in high school. But I wasn't too sure of myself. That evening, I went to Banning High School, signed up for 2 nights of machine shop. Then I went to Harbor College, and I signed up for 2 more nights of machine shop. So I had to put myself in a crash program where I can pick up on what I've forgotten and what I'm going to learn. So that kind of, you know, you have to be aggressive to do, you know, otherwise you'd be out there outside looking in. But so I did do this. I attended these classes, and that helped me out working at Disneyland. And the fact that I did have a background in steam and boilers, because locomotives, they're boilers, you know, then so I guess they picked me because of my past experience.
So what do you think was the big advantage of working for Disneyland? It was a brand new company at the time and pretty famous. So what kind of benefits did they provide you, or what was the advantages?
Well, I was very fortunate that Disneyland looked for people of my background, but they went to the operating engineers union, and this is how I got the job. Somebody told me that they needed a steam engineer, and I went over there. I think it was my brother, Uncle Tony. He's the one that told me about it. So I went, and they sent me over. They sent me to Disneyland, and they liked my background, and this is where I got started. Now, Disneyland was good. It was because we were working out of the operating engineers local union. It paid us good, very well. And so this is the reason why I stayed with Disneyland for, I don't recall, several years, 2 or 3 years. and it was good, and it got well paid, and that's basically the only benefits that I liked it, because the rest is just work. After a while, you go around the park, every 15 minutes to go around. I think it was a 1 mile track, and we had, I think it was, we had 3 or 4 locomotives going around in a circle, and which I think it was 50 minutes apart. So I think that's the way it was. Yeah.
And so when you left Disneyland, what did you do next?
After I left Disneyland, let's see.
Then yeah, here you went to the aircraft manufacturer, right?
I believe it was then that when I went to Disneyland, they required that I have to learn how to operate a crane, and they knew that I could weld. They know that I was a steam engineer because of my previous expertise in the merchant marines. So, and at that time, that's the time that my son Albert was born. At the time that I was working at Disneyland. Well, at that time, they had a small crane that they wanted the engineers to operate it. So they asked me, "Do you know how to operate a crane?" I said, "No, I do not. The only thing I have operated was winches on ships, and that takes quite a bit of coordination." And he said, "Well, if you can operate that, you can operate a crane." So he says, "Go over there and spend the whole day out in the crane and practice and how to lower your boom and how to pick up a load and pivot." And so by the end of 4 hours, I was ready. But I stayed out there. They wanted me to stay there, and this is how I learned to operate the cranes. And
so you can tell the story of Albert was born, and you were advertising that he was born.
Oh, yeah. Well, while I was operating the crane, Albert was born, and so I put down with chalk on the back of the seat of the crane, "It's a boy," and they wrote an article about that on their weekly paper that they get, that they put out. And
then after that company, and you left Disneyland, where did you go to again?
And then we were working during the summer. We were working 5 days a week, and then for the summer schedule, they cut us down to 3 days a week. And I says, "Well, I can't be doing this. I have kids. I have family to feed and all that. I got to have a full day of a 5-day work." So I left them, and then that's when I went to Kaiser. And I recall that there was another man that was laid off, and that's the one they had a choice, either me or him, and so they laid him off, and then I quit later on because they cut us down to 3 days a week. So he ended up interviewing for the position at Disneyland. No, excuse me, at Kaiser Hospital. And so I told, then I recall that Homer Baker was the chief engineer there. And he said, "Well, what do you..." And incidentally, Homer Baker was a plumber at Sunset Kaiser. And then when they opened up Kaiser Harbor City, he put in for a transfer and he got the job. But he originally was a plumber, but they gave him the position as a chief engineer. So the first thing he asked me, he said, "What do you know about electrical?" I said, "Well," I've had some schooling, and I think I'm pretty good." And then I said, "Well, wait a minute. This other guy that I was working with at Disneyland, he was laid off. He was also applying for that position." I said, "Well," I said, I'll compete against him. I says, you know, I just had enough confidence that I had enough experience that I could do the job better than he could, and I let him know. So that's where I stayed there, working at Kaiser there.
And then what happened?
Let's see. What did we go, Jenny? Yeah, from Kaiser, I went to Newberry Park.
So you moved the whole family to Newburgh?
We moved the whole family to Newberry Park, and we were there for how long, Jenny? Would you say? A couple of years?
A year.
A year?
We bought a house and
Yeah, bought a house. Yep, we bought a house over there, and
renovated our bedroom.
but I had to work with nuns, and God, that was the biggest mistake I ever made in my life. First of all, they don't know what a union is. Second, they want you to be dedicated to them 24 hours a day. You know, it's not to 8 o'clock and 8 hours and go home. I says, whoa, because they're dedicated to their order for 24 hours a day. So I said, no, that's enough of this. So I left them, and from there I went to,
The rendering plant?
I think it was a rendering plant. After that, I went to Baker Commodities, a rendering plant.
What is a rendering plant?
Rendering plants, what it is, they from all these butcher shops where they get all the meat out of the bone, and then the bones, what they do, they sell it to Baker Commodities, and Baker Commodities would grind these up, and once they grind it up, then they put them in the press, and they just press and get all the oil out of it, out of the bone. And what they do with this oil, they sell it to pharmaceutical companies where they make facial creams, and they use it for different things like that. No? Okay. So, but Baker Commodities was, that place was just, anything that went up in the air was vapors of oil vapors and grease vapors, and anything that any metal that you get hold of, you slide down on it, you know that. And I had to climb up there, and I had to do some welding, and oh God, man, that was dangerous.
What was your job?
Well, I was an engineer, and they had boilers, they had engineers who had to do everything.
So you say it's a pretty dangerous job.
Yeah, because of the vapors.
Did you ever see accidents on a regular basis?
No, I didn't see any. There wasn't too many of us there. People that were engineers that were working there. I think that was maybe 4 or 5 total.
So how long did you last in that job?
Well, maybe 1 year. And I got out of it as soon as I could. But because one other thing too, that all those grease vapors got into your body. And you shower and you shower and you shower, you still cannot get that odor out of your body. It was still in there. Oh, that was awful. So I knew that that's not the place for me. From there, I thought maybe from there, what did we do from there, Jenny? Do you recall?
Did you work over there?
So you went to Securities Pacific Bank, and where is that at?
Security, that's on 3rd and Flower Street, downtown Los Angeles. And it was a new building that was being constructed, and I stayed there after they opened up the place, and I was there for maybe a couple of years. And in the meantime, I was building my own business. That's when I started building my air conditioning business. Because I recall that I used to go out, and after work, I used to go out there and pick up new business, and if I went in the afternoon, these people never knew whether I was working some other place or what. You know, I just pretended that this is part of my route, you know, at this time of the day, and I had to play it cool, you know, and it worked out. I built up my business to a point that I finally decided to quit Security Pacific and go on my own.
How difficult was was that decision to leave a stable job at Security Pacific to a new fledgling company?
Well, it wasn't that difficult for me because I had confidence in myself. I had, by that time, I had already graduated from Harbor, and with my A degree in engineering, in basically my strength being in refrigeration and air conditioning. So I was very